Hey everybody, Nicole here with Own Your Momoko, Own the Moment Booth, and the affiliate manager of Photobooth Supply Co. I am so excited to be joined with my friend Samantha. Sam, do you want to be called Sam or Samantha?
Sam's good. I like
Okay.
Sam.
She has a photo booth out of Oregon, and I'm actually just going to let her take it from here. Would you mind just introducing yourself, sharing a little bit about you?
Yeah, of course. So, hi everyone. My name is Sam. I own Northwest Rose Events. We are a photo booth based in Oregon, like Nicole mentioned, and I'm all about what I say elevating event experiences. So, all of my photo booths, I really focus on the experience and the interactive qualities of those for wedding guests or whatever event I'm working to really enhance that whole experience for the guests there and make it more interactive and fun, in addition to being able to capture those memories and all of that great stuff that comes with photo booths. I started my business in 2021, and I guess a fun fact about what I've been doing with my business is up until this year, 2024, I have been fully digital. So I just got the guac and chips booth, and I'm starting to learn everything there is about printing. But up until that point, I have been fully digital and based in those iPad booths with the salsa.
Oh my gosh, I completely forgot about that. That's so right. I still had it in my head that you were digital, but yeah, you had the salsa for a full year, and I remember seeing all of your content come out from all your weddings that you were doing, and that is so exciting. So let's talk about that. Like, you got guac now. Have you taken it to a wedding yet?
Not to a wedding, but I worked a 2-day expo for a wedding showcase last weekend, and I have another one this weekend coming up that I'm taking my guac to. So it's super exciting to be able to experience, the whole printing of it all and figuring out the new booth. It kind of feels like back in 2021 again, just figuring things out and
Yeah.
making sure that I have everything good to go. And definitely is a bit of a switch up or a bit more complicated setup and everything that way. Comparing iPad booths with the salsa versus the guac. So even though I'm super familiar with the app and with the just the normal like setup of the structure,
Yeah.
it was definitely a little bit of a learning curve for me having experience in the industry. Being like, okay, there's like a physical camera I need to learn how to work with, and the printing aspect, and all the settings with that. That's been kind of fun to learn and kind of be in that new space after being really comfortable with the different system beforehand.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so yeah, I've been loving the guac so far. The quality is amazing, especially compared to front facing iPad cameras.
All right.
So yeah.
I have to tell you, I just got my guac this week and I've been playing with it. So it's literally in my living room right now, set up, and we were testing it. I've done like probably about 100 test prints now. Because I have a wedding that I'm gonna try and have it at and to do glam on Sunday. But it's so funny that you say that it's complicated because I'm like, oh, this is so much easier than printing with salsa.
Oh really?
It is. So it's like, oh, this is such a breeze. It's all connected. You don't have to troubleshoot. So I'm like, ah, yes. Trust me when I say it's such an easier printing option. So I'm like rethinking everything now with how I structure my business because I'm like, I might just do like any print service is just going to get the guac because it's
Yeah,
just hardwired and you don't have to troubleshoot any of that.
absolutely.
But that's so funny. Yeah. So you went straight from digital salsa to guac. Okay, so with now having a salsa and a guac, and we're gonna get into like how you structure your business in just a second, but I do want to talk about this because I think this is really interesting. How are you now going to kind of promote and offer these two different products?
Sure. Yeah. So basically, beforehand, when I was just fully digital, the only option I had for my business was the salsa booth. I have two at this point, and that was just what I would promote. This is a digital booth, this type of thing, and there it would come with some explaining to people because they don't know, the verbiage of all that or really what that means. They just know they want a photo booth type of thing. And so I kind of just took what I was already doing and focusing on those, what I say, elevated experiences, and keep that going forward with my guac. I just basically name them differently. And So when I'm explaining it to a potential lead, I ask them really like, what's your priority when it comes to a photo booth? Is it more of those interactive things? Do you want boomerangs? Or is your priority more like the best quality photos output that there is? And do you want prints? Because I am offering prints with the walk. So I'm calling my guac the luxury studio booth, and then I'm calling my salsas the elevated digital booth. So it's basically,
I love that.
yeah, a way for them to kind of pick and choose based on their budgets or based on whether or not they want printing, and they can kind of customize it that way. And so I'm not like pitting them against each other or saying, like, oh, well, that one doesn't have good quality, so you want to go to this one type of thing. It's all about just like focusing on them, what they're looking for, what they need for their specific event that they're hosting, and then basically pointing them in the right direction to the best fit of booth that I have type of thing.
I love that. And I love that you've like said it several times where you're highlighting the experience and the service. So I think I love that. So take notes, guys, if you're listening, like reach out to Sam if you have any questions about how to differentiate your two, because I feel like that was such a perfect way to kind of separate them and highlight the value of each of them. Okay, so let's talk about your business. Let's take it back to the beginning, because I don't think the audience has heard that yet. Why photo booths? Like, what started it all for you? Take us all the way back.
Sure. So, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I started my business in 2021. At the time, I was working for my uncle and his small business, and I was about to graduate college. So, it was still like post-COVID times, kind of still in COVID times in my area, where like I was still fully digital and remote in my school still. And so I was interested in events from the get-go, but it was one of those things where I'm like, I don't even know if events will be going on when I'm done with school. I don't exactly know how to even, get into that industry, not really knowing what things will look like by the time that I graduate. And so I was like kind of racking my brain, like, what am I going to do? Like, this is kind of hard to even conceptualize, like that there could be something, just because everything was changing so rapidly, and all the restrictions and rules and everything like that. So I was kind of just going through school, like, and as I would any other day, and trying to start researching what I could be doing. And like I mentioned, I've always been interested in weddings. I've always been interested in the event industry. And so just in my free time, or while I was working on my schoolwork, I would be listening to podcasts. And a lot of those would be like wedding vendor specific. And one that I was listening to was a wedding planners podcast. And she just mentioned Photobooth Supply Co. She mentioned their tagline, like business in a box, and I was like, wait a minute, this sounds like something I could do. This sounds something really interesting to me. And so I think that was in like February or so of that year, and I just started kind of digging into the research of it. I would like go on their website all the time and look at the salsa booths, like, ooh, these are cool. And I didn't even realize they were iPad based for the longest time, just because the look of them, I was like, I love how this looks. I've seen other like enclosed booths of photo booths, and I've seen other ones, but none of them have really stood out to me like these ones did. Just, the way they look, how they were like the open air concept and all of the things and the usability and everything. I was like, okay, this is something that I want to do. And I kind of hooked onto it, and that's just kind of, I was like, well, I guess I'm going to start a photo booth business. So I kind of saw it as like my foot in the door, I always say, to the wedding industry, because I knew I wanted to work in weddings. As a kid, I would like plan things with my friends. There was one summer I made a Samantha's Fun Camp. I was like 10 years old, and I gathered all my friends, and I had a schedule down to the bathroom breaks.
Oh my God.
We were all gonna do, which is pretty funny. So I just like have always kind of been that way. I would like set up weddings with my stuffed animals and have them marry each other.
That is adorable.
Oh my goodness. So, and yeah, throughout college too, I was on the orientation team. So I was always working with events, and I just kind of knew this is something that I wanted to do, and that would not only be, something to be a career, but also something that I would enjoy. So yeah, it really just seemed like, okay, Photobooth seemed like my way into this. And I was still working for my uncle at the time of getting my first salsa booth. So he actually purchased it for me. because I didn't really have money at the time, and he was like, "Sure, while you're working for me, you can pay me back in the work that you're doing for me already."
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so I think it was the essentials package that came with the backdrop and everything, and he paid for it, and then I continued to work for him, and paid him back just out of my paychecks that I was already getting. So eventually, I paid him off in full. And I was still, navigating everything with trying to figure out, my first events. And I'm the type of person too where it feels really nerve wracking if I don't like physically test everything out. I'm not going to
Yes.
be it to people, which I know some people do, and some people have success with that. But just for me, I'm like, if I don't physically know what's going on, I can't be telling other people to hire me for it.
I'm the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So it took me a bit of time to kind of get comfortable with everything and, make the connections enough to have my first events. So I had my first events in November of 2021. It was for a local university that hired me. And then shortly after, a local bridal boutique hired me, and they had me 3-day installation for their kind of event that they were doing. And those were my first
so cool.
events for university and for that. And the university has hired me back again and again over the time that I've had my booths. And yeah, it's just been really great experience for me, both for business and like professional and personal growth, to learn about all the things it takes to run a business, especially doing it by myself. And I'll work full time on top of it. So it's, a lot to manage and to learn, but it's really fun to figure it out and to be able to be a part of everyone's like really special moments and all their celebrations.
I love that. So one of the things I want to highlight is when you first start a photo booth business, it's super important to identify your ideal client. Sometimes it takes a little bit of trial and error. Do you feel like you went into it knowing that you had an ideal, like had a client in mind, or do you feel like you had to kind of work at it a little bit to figure that out?
Yeah, I absolutely from the get-go was like, weddings. I'm going to work. That'll be my thing. I'm just going to be a wedding photo booth. But, actually getting down to the nitty gritty of it all and actually being able to make those connections, I think was just a bit more work than I had fully anticipated when I got into it. And so, like I said, my first event was with the university, which is not a wedding.
Yeah.
So, and that just happened because I knew somebody who worked on their planning board. And so they ended up saying, I know somebody with a photo booth. We're looking for a photo booth. And it was like just a word of mouth referral. That ended up being my first event. And it was huge for me because I got that recurring client from that as well. So I think, I went into it for sure, knowing what I wanted to do, who I wanted to work with. But it took more time to really make connections that I could work those events. And I actually ended up working a bridal expo before my first event. And so it was one of those things where I was like, okay, here's my way in, here's my connection to get some of those wedding clients. I had one backdrop at the time. It was the double-sided marble backdrop from PBS Co.
Love it.
One salsa booth. And I was like, okay, here we go. It was a pretty like plain setup. It was just the backdrop and that. And I put some like roses together in a flower arrangement and had out. And it was really fun to just put myself out there and be like, well, here we are. Like, I gotta get some new clients one way or another. And I actually booked a lot of weddings from that first expo, and it led me to my first clients, my first wedding season. So I'm really thankful that I took the plunge to do that, even though I had no like actual event experience yet with my booth. But all of the testing leading up to it and everything, I was confident enough to go into it like, okay, I know what I'm offering, I know what I'm looking to offer to clients, and let's just do it and see what happens type of thing.
And I love that you like didn't give up when it got tough or when you didn't get those clients immediately. I see it often, right? We both see, we're both in the same Facebook groups where we see people get really frustrated when they don't kind of get that influx of leads that they are thinking that they can expect in the beginning. And truthfully, it doesn't work that way. No one's going to just come knocking on your door if you just put, hey, I have a photo booth now. Like, you really have to take that initial kind of steps to put yourself out there. And you did that by going to a bridal expo, which a lot of people have like talked down about, but you found it to be really successful for yourself. So I think that's really awesome. And you've done several since then, right?
Yes, absolutely. I did three, I think it was, since that one. And just this last weekend, I did a 2-day expo. And then this coming weekend, I'm doing another one. That's only one day. But yeah, basically getting those in as much as I
Yeah.
can and trying different, hosts of different expos to see which ones will have more, output or more leads or more kind of feel more worth it to me in terms of the pricing of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so far it's just been great. Even if I don't make that many leads for the weddings, I'm still making connections with other vendors, which can even be more beneficial because you get that kind of vendor referral or that long-term kind of friendship within someone who works in the industry as well. And so either way, it's like a win-win for me because I either get clients and I get vendor friends, or I just go with vendor friends, or so on. So it's really beneficial for sure.
I love that you brought that up because a lot of people can see, especially going to a bridal expo and being around other owners who own photo booth businesses who may even have the same kind of equipment as you, as like, oh my gosh, competition. Like, I got to take them down. But I know that you've taken a little bit of a different approach in a like community over competition. So I would love for you to just share with the audience like your take on um, having those, making those intentional connections with people in the industry in your area.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you mentioned, we're in a lot of the same Facebook groups. And so, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the time, everyone's bouncing off ideas off each other. Like, hey, what do you think of this template? Or I need help with so and so setting in the app, or whatever it may be. And I found, some people would know, like, oh, I'm in the Portland area, or I'm here. And so I had kind of connected with those people on social media and just made a point to really interact with their content and just kind of hype them up because, especially when I started, like, I felt really alone in it, and
Yeah.
no one else like knows what I'm doing, or no one else cares, like it's just me type of thing. Is I feel like it's kind of easy to feel like that when you're first getting started.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it's been super beneficial to just connect with the other vendors and genuinely be supporting them in their business and not seeing them as a competition, but someone else that I can connect with, or I can learn from, or I can refer my potential leads to if I'm busy, or like any of those things. And I find it's not helpful for me to compare myself to those
Yeah.
businesses, but to rather connect with them and to learn from them. I actually met up with several other booth owners in the area for coffee one morning. We all connected, just talked photo booths for hours and chatted. And I've met with another one of those same owners for happy hour before. Like, it's just really fun to have somebody who understands the industry and what you work with, and chat funny stories that happened at events, and like all the things where it doesn't have to be like pitting it, pitting
Yeah.
businesses against each other. It's more like we have this shared like interest, we have this shared job, we have this shared occupation and kind of passion. Why not, connect to make this better for ourselves and our own experiences in the industry, rather than, looking at them like, oh, that person's doing this and I'm not,
Yeah.
or whatever it may be. The comparison of those things really doesn't do anything good for you. It
Mm-hmm.
really, in my experience, comparing yourself to other businesses, whether or not they're in your area, just it's really only going to make you feel more self-conscious, or make you feel like you're not doing enough. But really, you have to compare yourself to like your own progress from when you started, and how you can learn from your previous events and so on. So yeah, definitely community over competition all the way for me.
I love that so much. Like, it is truly such a mindset shift that you have to consciously do, right? Because if you continually are comparing yourself and looking at others and having a competitive mindset, you're going to be isolating yourself. And instead of making forward motion and growing, you're going to be putting yourself back and even further. So I love your mindset here and I love your take on this. And I'm jealous that I just couldn't come and be a part of that meetup because I think it just would have been so much fun. Okay, so you previously mentioned that you do photo booths on the weekend and you do a full-time job. So let's just talk about that dynamic because there's a lot that goes into running a photo booth business. So how do you manage that aspect of it? Like, how do you manage your time? How do you manage doing this part-time?
Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be pros and cons to any of these things. If you work full time versus if you work part time, like I do, with my business. And so I feel like the biggest thing that I've benefited from with having a full-time job in addition to this is how flexible my job is. I work a 4-10 schedule completely remote. So that means I work Monday through Thursday from home, and then I have every Friday off. So I got really lucky with my employers being willing to offer that schedule for me. And so it makes it's super easy for me to have events or just prep for events when I have every Friday off. So if I know I have a weekend full of events, I know my Fridays are going to be designated to all my business things, testing my booths, all that kind of stuff. It's also super nice to have a regular income and a steady income coming in where I don't have to rely on paying my bills or feeding my family or anything like that based on my business. And so, yeah, I think there's give and take to any situation that you may be in. When you run a business, there's never really any guarantees. It's a lot of hustle. It's a lot of working and time management, regardless of whether you work as well on top of owning the business. And for me, I think it's really come down to all of that time management and making sure that I'm really smart with my time and having a lot of structures and kind of processes in place going into whenever I'm working on my business. So if I have like downtime during my workday on my lunch break or something, if I have downtime, I can kind of switch over to my personal computer or my iPad or whatever it may be and work on my events or answer emails. And it's really about kind of structuring your time as good as you can and as much as you can, working during the evenings after you're done with your regular shift or on those weekends when you don't have events, or especially during slower seasons of the year. Like I find the first 3 months of the year, I'm usually pretty low on events or maybe mostly doing open houses or expos. So I don't have those like active weddings or anything going on at that time. So that's really when I hunker down and I focus on making sure my website is how I want it to look, making sure my CRM settings are all how it goes and how I want it to work, and automations are all in place. So then when it moves forward into busy season, while I'm still working, I have all of those systems in place, and it makes it super easy for me to respond to inquiries and to book those leads without feeling super frantic or like I don't have enough time, or I have to spend all this time working on my business, so then I'm neglecting my day job type of thing.
Yeah.
It's really all about the balance and how much time you can put into it when you have the time, and just making sure all your systems are in place before you dive into all of that, I think helps a lot.
Oh my gosh. I can't emphasize that enough. Like having systems in place and automated stuff too. Like you use HoneyBook, right? Your
Yes.
CRM. Yeah, I do too. So I love HoneyBook. I love having all of that set up. Your booking forms are set up there, your contract, your invoice, your payments. Everything is organized and in one place, all of your communication, and you can even like schedule tasks and reminders, and like it's amazing. And I don't know how I would function without it. I know like it's such a lifesaver to have a really great system to organize everything and keep your business going, even if you don't have, even if you're not present to actually work in it. So
Absolutely.
yeah, having a system in place is absolutely essential in this business for sure. What would you say to maybe somebody who is working a 9 to 5 and is thinking about wanting to maybe start a photo booth business on the side on the weekends, just like you? What would you say to that person who's thinking about that? Like, what would your tips be to them?
Yeah, I would absolutely have them research as much as they can before they decide to dive in and purchase a booth, whether that be, whatever booth model you decide to purchase. That's really important because, they may be more complicated to set up. The systems that you need or the app or anything could be more difficult or need more technical experience or something to understand. So definitely research all your options out there to find what's a best fit for you. I know working with the salsa booths, they're super easy for me to handle completely by myself. So I don't need somebody else to come in or to hire out in order to help me set up at an event. So that's something really great to understand and to learn, like how many people would I need to be able to function in this business? What like operating expenses might I need to handle this all. And as much as you can basically plan and prep and strategize before you actually dive into it all, I feel like will help immensely when it comes to actually getting started and being able to actually go out there and have the capacity to make connections and to start the business. I feel like a lot of times people think it's going to be like a breeze, going to be walking in the park. As soon as they buy their booth, they're going to have all these inquiries coming in. And as soon as they post on Instagram, everyone's going to be like, yeah, that's what I want, and come flocking over. But it really takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And just being aware of that going into it, I feel like can really change the way that you go into the business. And if you know that, you're aware of all of the things that you need to be doing, I feel like that'll help you strategize and time manage when it comes to working a full-time job, because then you have realistic expectations that you're not going to be automatically getting all these inquiries the first weekend that you have it ready, and then you're like, oh great, I can just quit my full-time job in the next 3 weeks. You know, you have to be realistic about all the money and time and effort that goes into it. And yeah, I would say connections are huge. Networking is huge in this industry. And I've recommended a lot of people recently, if you're not seeing the leads from social media or from online ads you're running or any of those online presences that you may already have, going out into your local community and connecting with other local vendors that work with the clients that you want is going to make a huge difference. So I think that goes for whether you're part-time or full-time, you have another job or not. I think making those connections and networking is going to make the biggest difference in your success in this business. And I guess my biggest tips for working full-time while running a business is finding those little pockets of time that you can plug in and not worrying as much about getting everything done in one period of time, kind of breaking down your tasks as much as you can. So you can say, you know, I'm going to focus on perfecting my contracts on this week or whatever it may be, and prioritizing those things to make sure that you're set up and ready to go when you are ready to fully commit to it, because it is a huge commitment, time consuming, and all that stuff that I've mentioned over and over again. So whatever you put into it is really what you're going to get out to it at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to know the answer to this question. Do you ever see yourself, like, is it a goal of yours to go full time with the photo booth business, or do you anticipate, like, are you happy with like doing it part time on the weekends?
Yeah, so right now I really love how I've been working with it. I love the kind of consistency of my day job. I love being able to enjoy those celebrations and being a part of those weddings and everything on the weekends and during wedding season. I have gone kind of back and forth with myself, like, do I want to do this full time? Because you really, like, once you're in it, and you really don't get too much of a break. I know you probably from personal experience can know, like, being a mom and running it full time, like you're all in, you are the face and the voice of your business. So it's a big commitment definitely to go full time. And it's definitely something that I would consider doing in the long run. I would love to have a family. I'd love to have kids. And so thinking of how I could kind of take charge of my career and my business life with the business is really exciting to me, thinking about how I could have a full team and I could do all the back end work and then stay home with my kids and be able to be there for them and be active in their lives while also still running a business is really enticing to me. So I would guess, like, in the next 5 years or so, like, I'm not in any rush to jump into full time. But, you know, when the time comes, when I'm able to hire on a team and be able to still manage everything and provide those experiences while still having my own life and being able to be like an active participant in my future kids' lives is really important to me. So that's something that I definitely think about all the time. And that, yeah, it's really exciting idea to me to think about. I'm starting to like plan it out and break it down. Like, how much longer could I realistically do this part-time, you know, as I do more open houses and more things where I'm probably going to get a more influx of leads anyway. I might need to kind of step back from my day job anyhow. So it's definitely on my mind. It's definitely kind of in the works, but I'm not rushing into it at all at this point.
That's so exciting. I'm like so excited for you in your future. But I think like a misconception that I think is out there is that like it's the goal to be like full-time for the photo booth, like be full-time photo booth owner. And I don't necessarily think that's it. Like I think that's the beauty of this business, is that there's so many ways to do it. Like you can do this on the weekends and for 10, 15, 20 years and be perfectly fine and have that stability of your 9 to 5 during the week, have the health insurance, have all those benefits, have the 401k, you know, like have all of those, and then have that extra money on the side on the weekends, or build it up so that you can hire a team who could completely run it for you, and you can still just continue 9 to 5 if that's your passion and that's where your heart is. Or alternative, like completely ditching the 9 to 5 to have that freedom in your week, and then doing the events on the weekends and the events that you choose to do. And there's so many ways to run this business and to do it, and in a way that works for you and your family. And I think that's what I've loved so much about hearing people's stories, hearing your story, how you came into this and how you're thriving in it, and how you're planning your future with this business. You know, like I think that's amazing, and I think it's so inspiring, and I hope people listening can relate or be encouraged or inspired by your story, because I just love how you've built your business and how you've run it. And I know we've done an interview before where we've talked about like your brand photo shoots and how you set up your brand for your company. So you also, by the way, have a YouTube channel now, which I love. I'm a fan. Go subscribe. But we'll put all of her information in the description notes below. Can you talk about your YouTube channel, why you started it, like what your goal is with that and everything?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for saying all of that. It means a lot to me coming from you. I've always looked up to you and everything that you're doing in your business. So I really appreciate it. That means a lot. I was really inspired to start my YouTube channel, partly because of watching yours and seeing all of how helpful it is and how much like people don't know going into the business, that after experience kind of just feels natural to you if you know what you're doing. But to other people, it can feel super overwhelming getting into this business and being like, oh, there's so much that I need to learn. There's so much to go on. And if you're already booking clients, but then you haven't really had experience to really dive in and sit with all of these things that are in the behind the scenes and the back end aspect of the business, it can feel pretty scary. And so for me, when I first started in 2021, I didn't really see that much content other than like the provided materials from Photobooth Supply Co. And so I would search like Atlas backdrop setup or anything like that. Yeah. And I wasn't really finding it. So I'm like, okay, I think this is how it works. And like just giving things a test run basically in my house and hoping that they work out, and basically trial and error. So I really wish that there is channels like yours, and hopefully what mine will come to be with time there when I first started. And so I really focus on gearing my content towards people who are brand new in the industry. They don't have to be specifically Photobooth Supply Co. because I talk about CRM. I talk about just in general digital booths and elevating those services and everything like that, that I'm just really excited to share my experience so far. And as I'm still learning throughout the different seasons of my business, I think it could be helpful for anyone starting out or who has experience to just hear from someone who's going through the same things or had gone through the same things in the past. And I think it's just really great to kind of, again, build that community and be able to bounce ideas off each other, or, you know, notice like, oh, I've never thought of trying that with my business. That's a great idea. Any of those things I think is super helpful to always be learning, always be trying to grow in your personal business, anything like that. So that's definitely my goal with my YouTube channel, is just to continue to put out content there that people will find helpful and that will make their beginnings in their business a little bit less chaotic, a little bit more comfortable, and a little bit less, you know, overwhelming or any of those things.
I love that. And again, like having that insight from someone in the community who maybe is just like you, like that's so valuable. There's always such a wealth of information out there. And I'm so excited to hear your take on the industry and your experience and your expertise, and watch you as you grow in your business. So I'm super excited. Sam, thank you so much for your time. If someone wants to kind of chat with you further about your experience, where can they find you?
Absolutely. I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook, and on YouTube, all at Northwest Rose Events, and that's just NW Rose Events, all one word. You're welcome to reach out to me via DMs if you have any specific questions about anything. I also like taking requests for YouTube videos. So if you have anything you've been really wanting to know or you have questions about, don't be afraid to reach out. There are no stupid questions. I'm happy to chat with you and to even create some more content that might be helpful.
Thank you so, so much. Make sure to go check her out, chat with her. She's a wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Sam. Bye.